you a little bit of background about myself. Originally, I'm from Orlando, Florida, and as a child, I grew up as a classical musician, pretty determined, focused classical musician. And when I graduated high school, I went off to music school in New York. When I was in music school, I met my husband there, and when he graduated, we moved to Boston. And when I was in Boston, I attended Boston University. And after graduation, I started working as a classical musician. I played in the Boston Symphony, I played in lots of different orchestral groups, and I started my own music entertainment agency while I was there as well. So I book out myself, I book out fellow musicians for events and weddings and concerts and different things. And I also worked a corporate marketing job. So it's pretty busy, things are going pretty well. And my husband got an opportunity to come to Hawaii and with his music gig. And so we decided to come, and that was 15 years ago. And at the time when we first got here, I was playing some in the Honolulu Symphony and had another corporate marketing job. So I was balancing the two. And then the symphony actually went under and collapsed. And so I lost my creative outlet of, putting all my energy into the creative side. And then I was a little disenchanted with my corporate job. So I said, I've really got to figure out something to do on my own, do my own business, figure something out. So I started a company called Bubble Shack Hawaii, and it was a natural bath and body company. And for 10 years, I built and grew that company, and then in 2016, I sold it. So along the way, as I was building that company, my husband and I, for the first 5-6 years, we were just slave drivers with each other, and we drove ourselves into the ground building that company. And I would say probably, like 5-6 years later, after working 7 days a week, 14, 15-hour days without a day off, like in 5 years it seemed like, I was running out one night to grab some food for us and bring it back to the warehouse and have a quick dinner before going back to work. And I happened to catch a glimpse of myself in the store window in the restaurant. And I didn't realize it was me. And once I realized it was myself, I literally had a meltdown, internally. And I realized I had put on 35 pounds, over the course of a couple years of building this business. And so right then and there in that moment, I decided, hey, I've got to change my life. I've got to change things. I can no longer work these crazy hours. I can no longer get food on the run. I can no longer be stressed all the time. I've got to change my life. And so I did. I decided right then and there to make some changes. And so I basically told myself, okay, give yourself a year and just study and figure out how to eat for your body. And so I kind of went on this quest, and I said, okay, I'm going to give myself a year. I'm going to get 30 pounds off, and if it's a pound a week, that's what I'm going to do. And for the first time in my life, that was something that actually worked, because I had done this string of yo-yo dieting for a couple years before, and it never worked out. So I did a lot of research, and I figured out what worked for me, and I lost the weight, and I've kept it off for 8-9 years now. I don't even really think about it anymore. So in that process of learning things for myself, I actually ended up going back to holistic nutrition school. So I went to the Institute for Integrated Nutrition, and I studied over 100 different dietary theories. And in that process, I learned some amazing information about mind, body health and holistic nutrition. And then the final sort of icing on the cake that really pushed me into really wanting to teach others about health and nutrition was about 1.5 years ago, my dad actually came down with stage 4 cancer. And he unfortunately passed away after 6 weeks. It was lung cancer, so there wasn't a whole lot at that point that we could do. But in my quest to try and help him and to learn everything I could about his condition, I just became really, really passionate about teaching others to be healthy, and especially things that you can prevent. I mean, smoking obviously is something that you can prevent and you shouldn't be doing, but on the health side with food, there's a lot of things that people eat and lifestyle habits that people have that ultimately can lead to dying in an early age. So for me, it's really something that I'm passionate about, living your best life and doing it through healthy eating. So there's my picture of when I was a little extra meat on my bones. So I wanted to just share a few facts with you guys. So what I'm going to do today is sort of explain how we as a country have gotten to where we have gotten. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about our body types and how we can analyze our bodies to figure out the foods that are best for us. And then I'm going to talk about some things that are good for everyone, and tips for digestion, tips to get the weight off, tips to live a healthy life. So, a few facts here. So, among American adults, 154.7 million are overweight or obese, and nearly 1 in 3 children in the U.S. are overweight or obese. Over the past 30 years, childhood obesity has more than doubled in children and tripled in adolescents. And according to the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, of 10 countries or territories with the highest obesity rates, 5 are in Oceania, 4 in the Middle East, the U.S. comes in at number 6. So there's lots of different statistics, and I throw them up all on one side, but we all know that it's a problem today in America. And the result is cardiovascular disease, it's depression, it's cancer, it's diabetes, it's immune disease, and it's early death. So, how did we get here? Back in the 80s, and I'll go a little bit more into this in the next slide. Back in the 80s, corn, wheat, soy, and sugar were basically deregulated, and so by the U.S. government. And so it opened up a whole explosion of genetically modified crops. So that's the first reason. Convenience of processed foods becoming so readily available to us is the second. Food marketing and overuse of antibiotics and treatment of symptoms versus root causes. So with the GMOs, and I realize this is a little bit of a controversial topic, but I do feel it's really important to touch on this because there is a lot of hard research that's out there and that has been documented, and I would be happy to share at the end of the presentation all of that research and where you can actually research it for yourself. But like I was saying, in the 80s, agricultural commodity crops were deregulated. And so what it did is it caused an explosion of wheat, soy, corn, and sugar beets to go into our food system. And so those companies that produce those crops took on investors. And in order to basically make the investors happy and make more money, those particular crops were stuffed into products everywhere. So that's where the explosion of convenience foods came from. So they were put in everything, everywhere, so that the profits of the companies could increase. So, why are GMOs bad? There's a lot of different reasons, but the two main reasons that I feel stick the greatest are Bt toxins and glyphosate or Roundup. So, Bt toxin is sprayed on crops, and the reason why it's sprayed is it kills insects. And the way it kills insects is it pokes holes in their gut lining. In genetically modified crops, the Bt toxin is actually encapsulated into the plant. And so it's nearly 3,000 to 5,000 times greater the potency in the GMO crops than it is in regular crops when it's sprayed. So when you ingest that, it's actually poking holes in your gut as well. So that, in combination with Roundup that saturates the plants, which is an antibiotic, and it kills off your good bacteria, you basically got a storm going on in your gut. And so that's why there's been this huge influx of people that suffer from all sorts of different autoimmune diseases. They suffer from fibromyalgia. They suffer from reproductive disorders. There's a whole science that's coming up that people have discovered that GMOs are directly related to leaky gut syndrome, and it's literally from it poking holes in your gut. So when the gut gets the holes poked, the toxins leak out, and it causes all kinds of issues in the body. Okay, so in your handout that you have, there's, I think it's the second or third page in there, there's all the different types of variances of GMOs that come from corn, soy, wheat, and sugar beets. So anytime you're eating anything in a box, you really want to make sure that you're not seeing these ingredients. And we'll talk a little bit about food marketing in a minute, but this is a good guide for you to keep in terms of things to avoid. Now, there are some things on this list that in recent years I've noticed there's a lot of non-GMO versions of, like tofu and tempeh, for instance. Most of the places where I buy those products, they all say non-GMO, they mostly say organic. So there's obviously versions out there that are fine, but these are things over the years that have typically been in the food supply that are GMO. So be on the lookout for those. Okay. And then that's where the food marketing comes in. So with the explosion of all the processed and convenience foods, the companies behind them had to market them, right? So I always tell people to make sure that you flip the package around, whatever it is that you're buying that's in a box that's processed, or not processed if it's in a box, because the front panel of anything is basically the Wild West. Manufacturers can put anything that they want on it, unless it is like a USDA organic symbol. I mean, there's certain things that are regulated, but they can make all kinds of claims on the front. So make sure you flip it around and read the exact ingredients in the ingredient list, because you would be shocked at things that say made with whole grains, or made with organic, or made with. Made with is one of the key sort of indicators, if you see that on packaging, that there's going to be many other ingredients in the list that you probably want to avoid. Things like bread are a very good example, or like veggie burgers, for instance. You think, oh, I'm eating a veggie burger, but you turn it around and it's got modified food starch in it, and it's got wheat gluten, and it's got all kinds of different things that really aren't good for you. So reading those ingredient labels is okay. The antibiotics. So as I talked a little bit before, here we've got a society of people that are eating tons of convenience foods with GMOs in them that already have basically antibiotics. And then as modern medicine has evolved, prescriptions are written so easily and symptoms are treated versus root causes. So now you have people also taking tons of antibiotics. And what it does is it kills off your good gut bacteria. So when you lose good gut bacteria, it makes way for invaders, bad bacteria, things like candida, which is yeast. And so what those things can do is they can cause a whole host of problems. Again, autoimmune disease, IBS, ulcerative colitis, fibromyalgia, the list goes on and on and on. And it can actually make it really difficult to lose weight when your body has lots of candida in it. You have a constant feeling of being bloated. So if you ever feel like you're just a little bit bloated all the time, it could very well be from antibiotic use, from having bad gut bacteria, from having candida, and it just doesn't make you feel like you're on a great track as you're trying to lose weight. So, does anybody know how to repair the gut from all of these outside sources? Probiotics? Yep, exactly. So, we have probiotics. So, taking at least a 50 billion pound strain helps to replace good bacteria. And there's been a lot of different information out there about probiotics. Used to, they said you wanted to get one from the refrigerator section because you wanted to make sure the bacteria stayed intact. Now they're saying that you want to get one that's not refrigerated, because if it has to be refrigerated, by the time it goes through the heat in your body, then it's probably going to kill off the bacteria before it even does anything. So you want to get one that has multiple strains, has at least 50 billion count, and doesn't have to be refrigerated. Getting them at the health food store is the best way to do. Get it at Whole Foods or Down to Earth. Getting them at Walmart is probably not a good idea. They're not going to have the best grades and the best quality probiotics. Costco? Costco? I'm not sure of a brand at Costco, honestly. But if you do want to take one, I can give you some brands. For sure. Okay, so the other ways to repair the gut. Eliminating GMO foods. Eliminate glutinous grains, which I'm going to talk about gluten in a minute. Some dairy in some cases, because dairy can cause mucus and it can cause lots of different allergens, which I'll talk a little bit more again. And then sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. So caffeine and alcohol are actually stimulants, and if you have candida in your gut, or you have a lack of good bacteria that's been pulled off, it's just going to make it worse. So as you're working to repair your gut and you're working to lose weight, working to get your whole system worked out, laying off the sugar and the caffeine is a good idea, and alcohol. So if you do happen to get sick while you're trying to get healthy, you're trying to get your gut repaired, I would never tell somebody don't take antibiotics if they have something like a staph infection or something that's really, really serious. But there's a lot of things that you can do, like if you have a sinus infection, for instance. Z-Paks are given out left and right, and that's one of the hardest antibiotics on your body that kills off good bacteria. I mean, I can personally speak for that because I went through a whole thing after taking a Z-Pak and had lots of issues after a year. It took me a year to get it cleaned up. But you can use things like oregano oil. You can eat raw garlic. There's a whole host of different things that can get rid of sinus infections, or simple common cold type things. You don't usually get antibiotics for common colds, but there's lots of natural alternatives instead of using antibiotics for simple things that people get. Let's see. Consider supplementing with an antifungal. So, things that kill off bad bacteria, things that kill off candida in your body: coconut oil, raw garlic, caprylic acid, ginger, oregano, or you can also get a supplement. There's one called Candax that'll kill off the candida in your body and help to restore your gut flora. There's also, if you really think you have an issue, and the reason I'm talking so much about this is because so many people have an issue with this. Usually when I start working one-on-one with people, I find gut health is the core of most people's issues with not being able to lose weight. So I'm harping on this a good bit, but I'm doing it because I know that a lot of you out there probably have these issues. So there's a couple resources, and at the end, and you'll actually see in your handouts, I've got several resources for you all to look at for self-study. But the Candida diet is a fantastic program to start off on if you're trying to repair your gut. There's several elimination diets that are out there, and then there's also a leaky gut diet. And Dr. Axe, if any of you guys follow him, he has a good version of that on his website, and that's on the handout that I gave. Okay, so now that we've kind of talked about how our bodies kind of went awry from some different things that were out of a lot of our control, fixing it is what we want to do, and getting ourselves to a healthier state and looking at all the different ways that our weight is affected. So primary foods, what I like to call primary foods, is basically everything other than the food that you eat. So health is very individualized. Weight is very individualized. Every person's body is very different from the other, and every person needs different things. They need different things for food, they need different things to make them happy and content, and so you have to take a step back and look at your work, your spirituality, your physical movement and exercise, and the relationships with people around you. So in the handout packet, the very first page is something called the Circle of Life. And you don't have to do it now, but at some point, what you can do is you place a dot inside of each of the little pie pieces on the graph. And then the happier you are in that area, you place the dot further towards the outside of the pie. And then as you're less content, you want to place the dot further towards the center. And then after you put dots in each one of your little pie pieces, you connect the dots. And so it may sound like something that's kind of elementary to do a little practice like this, but when you can see visually how you view your life and your happiness in a pie chart, it can be really telling, and it can show you the areas that you need to work on. And you know, the thing is your pie chart is never going to be one big happy circle. There's always going to be little indentations that are in your graph, but it's good to see the areas that you should work on in order to get your mind free and feel better and feel happy, because if you're not happy and you're not feeling good, chances are you won't be able to lose weight. It's all connected. So, we've reviewed the Circle of Life, and the thing, like I was just saying too, is as you're looking at your Circle of Life and you're figuring out your areas, small changes are always the best approach. The whole, people start off at the gym in the beginning of the year, and they're at 24-hour, and you can drive by like in Pearl City, you can see the huge window, and everybody's in there running. And 2 months later, it's completely trailed off, and there's a third of the people that are still going. So approaching things with moderation and approaching changes in your life, your lifestyle, your food, your eating with moderation is absolutely the way to success instead of steamrolling it from the beginning. So I'll talk a little bit about perfectionism in just a bit. Okay, so coming from the entrepreneur here, who at many times in my work life have felt a little, as I said, disenchanted, I truly value enjoying going to work and doing something that I love. And I can say that if you do not enjoy what you're doing and you go to work there 8 hours a day, every single day of your life, you gotta make a change, right? So I get that a lot of people aren't in the position to make a change because they have children, they have bills, they have a mortgage, they have all these obligations, right? So as you make a plan to try and make a change, in the process, what you can do is try and find something within your job that makes a difference to someone on some level, because that's really the basis of happiness, is being fulfilled, is making a difference to someone else. So if you're on an assembly line wrapping gum into gum wrappers, how could you possibly find something fulfilling in that? Well, if you think about it, someone at some point is going to chew the gum, and they're going to get a second of happiness from chewing the gum because it tastes good and they like it. So as menial as that sounds, you have to think of it in that way, and it'll change your mindset if you are stuck in a job that you hate. But again, trying to get to a point where you can make a change, make a plan, make a change, because it's a lot of time to invest doing something that you don't like. So work life is really important in the primary foods group. I have a blog about this on my website, which is at the end in the little packet. Okay, spirituality. This can mean a whole bunch of different things for people. It's not religion. It doesn't necessarily have to be God. It can be whoever it is that you believe in, or whatever it is that you believe in. It can even be a practice of meditation or yoga. It's really having something that you can call on that's greater than yourself. So that can mean a lot of different things as well. So another part of spirituality, I believe, is being able to articulate your life's purpose in one sentence. So that can be somewhat of an internal practice, but it also creates this ability to live in the present moment when you are able to articulate that. And there's a lot of studies out there, the Blue Zone Project, we were talking about this earlier, is really great because one of the key components of people that live long in these regions around the world is that they know their life purpose. So taking that and kind of dumping that into the spirituality realm is something that I would encourage everyone to explore. I can't tell you what spirituality means to you, but as you explore that, that's a component and a piece of your primary food group and what can bring you overall joy and overall happiness. Movement or physical exercise. It's so important to move your body every single day of your life in some way. And I will tell you, as we get into more of the body typing, CrossFit and running marathons is not for everybody, and some body types shouldn't even be doing that. However, other body types should, and we'll talk about that. But the main important thing with exercise is doing something that you enjoy and that you love. You know, if you're going to the gym and you're getting on the Stairmaster and you hate it and you dread going there and you hate the drive and it's not working, like, you shouldn't do that. But if you were a child, you took ballet lessons and you loved ballet, look for an adult ballet class. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. It's doing something that you love. As long as your body is moving and you're doing it consistently, it just has to be something that you enjoy, physical activity. Of course, any chance you get, trying to move your body with taking the stairs instead of the elevator, walk your dog around the block when you can. A big thing is at work. Most people that work in offices sit all day long, right? So if you're able to replace your office chair with a stability ball, which most companies are completely fine with that. I used to do that. That's a great way to engage core muscles. It's a great way to just not be stagnant on your ukulele all day long. Or standing desks too. Costco actually had them a few weeks ago, I saw. So you can easily modify your desk at work, bring in a standing desk, and then you've got your energy running through your body in just a different way than sitting on your booty all day long. Okay, once you do get moving and you find your activity, finding an activity that's a flow state activity is something that's really cool, and I think it's really important for a lot of people to engage in. Again, I think the Blue Zones Project talks about this, but there's a whole theory about flow state activities and how when you're in a state of flow, it actually creates some of the happiest people in the world. So it's an activity where your entire mind is completely engaged in whatever it is that you're doing. You can't think about anything else other than that activity. So an example would be surfing, snowboarding, mountain biking, anything that you have to concentrate on and use physical movement in order to produce it. Yoga, to some extent, could be considered a flow state activity. So it's something to research, it's something to read more about and figure out what state of flow that you can get yourself into within an activity that you really enjoy. Okay, and then lastly, in the primary foods group, is your relationships. So obviously we want to have great relationships with everyone around us, our family, our friends, our spouses, and of course they're never going to be perfect, but obviously working to have good relationships with people around us is important for happiness. From the Blue Zones Project, one of the keys to a long, healthy life is having a good community of people, a place where you actually feel like you belong. So it may be that it's a social situation, it may be a faith-based organization that somehow your community is involved in, but feeling as though you can socialize with people around you and feel as though you belong is really important. So the way I look at this is, if you're living in a community and you're around people that stay in their house all day long, but you're a social person and you want to talk to people and you want to meet people and you want to be around others and have your family interact with other families, it may not be the right place for you. Thinking about where you live, where you interact, and where you keep yourself is an important part to happiness. Okay, so now that we have our primary foods established, we can talk a little bit more about what to actually do, what to actually eat, and the food side of things. So, who knows their blood type in the room? So maybe half. Okay. If you don't know your blood type and you want to find out your blood type, you can get it by donating blood. If you've had a baby, you can get it by calling your doctor. They usually have it. If you haven't had a baby and you're a woman, they typically don't have it. You can also do a home test, which is cool. Amazon has little tests that you can order. They're like $10. You prick your finger, drop the blood on the card, and it tells you your blood type immediately. So super, super easy. But with the blood type, and I wouldn't say that I advocate doing the blood type diet because I don't believe in diets, but there's some really amazing information that comes out of the scientific data from the blood typing theories. And it's really interesting too for someone like me that gets to talk to a lot of different people and hear a lot of different stories and analyze a lot of different people. And I find that this methodology holds true with nearly everyone. It's really cool stuff. So basically, knowing your blood type tells you what your body is capable of processing well. So basically, what to eat. It's not a Bible of you have to eat this. It's more like what your body tells you it wants and what it's capable of eating. And then also what it doesn't do so well with. It also tells you what types of exercises and movement are best for your body type, and it explains some of your innate traits and body functions. So certain things that may be going on that you've noticed about yourself over the years, it's really scientifically explained through blood typing. Okay, so we have 4 blood types, positive and negative. Doesn't really make a difference in this particular ideology, but if you're a type A, which is me, you can probably tell by the scene I'm talking, I have kind of a type A personality. So type A's are the first vegetarians. So originally it came from during the Fertile Crescent days, and there was some drought and famine, and so basically all they had to eat was grains and plants. And so over the years it just kind of evolved. And so most type A's tend to thrive on a primarily plant-based diet. We typically tend to have sensitive digestive systems, and our immune systems can be more vulnerable if we aren't eating the right types of foods and have the right primary foods in order. So for me, for instance, it's really not a great idea for me to do CrossFit or for me to go run hardcore all day long at the gym. I'm better served doing things like yoga and surfing and things that are a little more calming and a little more flow state, because me, type A, the fire tends to rise up quickly. So I have to do things that are calming in order to keep myself in balance. And that's typical with most type A blood types. The type Bs, I love type Bs because they always balance me very well. Type Bs have a very tolerant digestive tract. I typically find they can typically eat most foods, except chicken isn't recommended because it coagulates the blood. So that's one to typically stay away from. But usually type Bs have stronger immune systems. And in order to stay balanced, they really need to have this have physical and mental activities to stay lean and sharp. So it's a combination of brain and body. ABs are super cool because it's a combination of the A and the B. So you've got the A that pushes you along, but then the B calms you down. So you basically find that type ABs have chameleon responses to environmental and dietary changes, and they have a pretty flexible foods list as well. For them, a balance of spirituality, physical verve, creative energy, they kind of need everything in order to stay balanced. Type O's, that's my husband. He's the complete polar opposite of me. He's the meat eater. So O's have the best ability to digest meat, and red meat especially. It's not that it's good for you to eat meat all the time, and in fact, you'll see later on in this presentation, I recommend an 80-20 plant-based diet for everyone. But it's good to know for yourself that you can eat meat, and it's not going to affect you in a negative way. If you have a grass-fed, free-range steak once a month. It's just knowing that your body can tolerate it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for you to have all the time. Type O's typically need intense physical activity. These are the types that need the CrossFit. These are the types that need the marathon running. It's a lot of times it's the type O's, they need it to really help balance the stress levels as well, and to maintain metabolism. Wheat and dairy are things that you'll see that I'm going to mostly recommend not having for most types, although B types typically can do pretty well with dairy, just depending on if it's organic, and there's a few things that are there, but typically the Bs do okay with dairy. Most everybody else wheat and dairy, it's kind of something that you want to think about avoiding, and I'll tell you why soon. Okay, so now we have one methodology, blood typing, that tells us a little bit about ourselves. The second methodology that I think is fascinating, actually, is Ayurveda. And Ayurveda originates from India. It's an ancient Indian system of body typing classifications. So in Ayurveda, there's 3 doshas. There's Vata, which is comprised of space and air, Pitta, which is fire and water, and Kapha, which is earth and water. And what's interesting is I find 90% of the time, if I pull someone's astrological chart, which is fascinating to me as well, it tends to match this. So that to me also says, okay, there's some things here that make a lot of sense that link up. So for instance, just to give you an idea, I have a Pitta predominance for my dosha, which is fire and water. And my sun sign is Scorpio, and my moon sign is Sagittarius, fire and water. So it goes together. But when you find out your predominance, which one you are, this also gives you a lot of insight into things you should eat, how you should calm yourself, and just some innate, again, body functions, things, just how your body works. So I saw most of you guys filling out the Ayurveda quiz as you came in, so you probably at this point already maybe figured out your dosha. But it's great to take time and do it on your own in a quiet environment, and also have your spouse or a friend even give you a second opinion on some of the things that you think. Because a lot of times you think one thing about yourself, but people see you in a different manner. So it's interesting actually to do it yourself, and then if you're married, have your spouse do it and see what they come up with. But basically, the Vata types are typically thinner, delicate bone structures, low body fat, hard to gain weight. They can tend to be a little bit light and airy, kind of sensitive. A lot of times you'll find they're late to different appointments. It's hard to get them on time, a little flighty, sometimes memory problems. But that's when they're out of balance. It's not to say that all Vata types are not going to show up on time. It's just when the Vata gets extra aggravated, those are the things that you tend to see. So I'm going to kind of go through some of this a little quickly because I have a lot to cover. But basically, so if you're a Vata type and you're feeling extra Vata because you're out of balance, you probably don't want to eat foods that are light and airy at that time, right? You don't want to eat salads and things that are super light. You want to eat things that are more rooted, like a chili, or like a pumpkin, or sweet potatoes, things that can root or ground you to help reduce some of the Vata and the air. So Pitta, fire is the big one with Pitta dosha. So we typically tend to have medium body frames. We're usually more of like an athletic kind of build. You tend to build muscle somewhat easily. But it also, with Pitta, tends to align with type A. I find a lot of Pitta dosha are also type A blood types. So you can easily get yourself stressed out. You can get yourself overwhelmed because you're constantly trying to keep up and do your best and be a perfectionist. And so knowing those things about yourself is great information because it helps you to try and calm and do the things that calm the fire within. So for Pitta dosha, some of the foods to reduce: excessive spice. You don't want to eat really, really spicy food because that can throw you out of line. It can make the fire even greater inside. So reducing spicy foods, and of course red meat. And then foods to increase: sweeter foods, light proteins, spices like cardamom, all things that are going to be a little more cooling to the body. Peppermint tea is another good one. Sweet vegetables are also great. Kapha. So Kapha is the third dosha, and Kapha is more of your larger body types. Tendency is to gain weight easily. However, it does not mean that Kapha types are destined to be overweight for the rest of their life. It's just knowing that that's your body structure and you have to work with it. So tends to hold on weight a little bit more weight in water. But this type is a lot of times I find Kapha types are type O's or type B's. And those are the ones that need the CrossFit. Those are the ones that need the marathon running. Those are the ones that become tackle football players and become stellar athletes. So they have the power, the force, and the grounding behind them. So with Kapha, foods to reduce. Heavy, starchy foods. It's the complete opposite of Vata. So eating the sweet potatoes, eating the heavy pumpkins and the stews and things like that, not something you want to have on a regular basis because it'll increase the Kapha. Lighting up. This is the type that needs the salads, right? The salads, the lighter vegetables, the lighter proteins, spinach, light grains like quinoa. If you are feeling heavy and you eat light, it actually has an effect. I know it sounds kind of crazy because it's against everything we've been taught over the years, but lighter foods make you feel lighter. And they actually make you lighter, that's all. Okay, so as far as Ayurveda goes, I could talk about Ayurveda for 2 hours tonight, but unfortunately I have to kind of cover a lot of different things so that I can expose you all to lots of different components of health and weight loss. So in the handout that I gave, there's a book called Healing Your Life that is a great resource for Ayurveda. And there's actually several websites out there online. If you just search for Ayurveda, figure out your dosha type from the quiz that I gave you, and then you can search for Kapha food list or Pitta food list, and you can find it. There's so many reliable sources online to look at, and it's fun reading. I encourage you all to explore it more. Okay, so now on to the things that every body type should be aware of. These are things that are problematic for nearly everyone. So sugar, in my eyes, is the biggest culprit for just about everybody. We have a nation of people that are addicted to sugar because it's stuffed into everything. So just a few statistics, I won't read all of them, but the consumption of corn-based sweetener was 64.5 pounds per person in 2010. That's the most updated facts from the USDA. But we've seen in recent years an explosion of health-related problems that come from overeating of sugar. Diabetes, hyperglycemia, weight gain, cardiovascular issues, and cancer. Cancer is, it basically feeds on sugar. And, I saw an example that even made me more of a believer about that when my dad was going through his cancer, and they put this sugar liquid, they had him drink this sugar liquid, and they put him under this, black light thing. It's kind of a bit of a blur at this point for me, but when they put that liquid in, you could see it just go straight to the cancer, and it showed them where it was. So it just kind of confirmed everything that I had read and been taught in school, that cancer feeds on sugar. So there's lots of hidden sources of sugar. So it's not just seeing sugar on a label or high fructose corn syrup. It's dextrose, maltodextrin, evaporated cane sugar. There's all sorts of other types of sweeteners that also have lots of different levels of sugar, and they're different on the glycemic index. So also the packet I gave you, I recommend pulling the glycemic index for all sweeteners, and you can really see what the different levels are in the different sweeteners that you may be already using or that you might even want to try. Okay, so I think we all know it's a problem. So I'm going to move through some of these here. Okay, how much sugar should we consume in a day? So this is always a shocker for everybody. Recommended by the American Heart Association, it's 20 grams a day for women and 36 grams a day for men. So to put this into perspective, 1 glass, 8-ounce glass of pasteurized orange juice in the morning has 20 grams of sugar. So if you're drinking that, you're starting your day off with the maximum amount of sugar that you should have for that day. So a quick note about juices. So when you buy juice, even if it's 100% juice at the store, you're basically buying sugar water. I don't care how great the front panel says it is, how many nutrients in it, how organic it is. After 3 days from the fruit juice being pressed out of the fruit, those nutrients are gone. And when it's pasteurized, they're even further gone. So if you're going to drink juice, you got to make it yourself. Squeeze it that day, or go to a juice company that's making it fresh right there. That's when you get the juice that has the fiber in it, and your body actually processes it different than just drinking week-old juice that's been sitting on a shelf after it's been pasteurized. So just a tip about juicing. But something I want to show you that's going to be pretty interesting is, this is a typical breakfast for a lot of people, right? A cup of Greek yogurt and some organic granola on top, right? We think that's great. It's super healthy, right? Well, when you turn around and you look at the panel on the back, there's 16 grams of sugar in this yogurt, okay? This organic pumpkin seed and flax organic non-GMO granola, it has 16 grams of sugar. So right here we have 32 grams of sugar to start our day off, okay? We've had already over our maximum for women. So when people come to me and they say, I'm eating really healthy, I'm starting my day off, and I'm eating yogurt, I'm eating da-da-da-da-da, I'm like, okay, let me take a look. What's the sugar starting in the morning? Because when you start with this much sugar in the beginning of the day, at 3 or 4 o'clock, or at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, you're going to have an attack, and you're going to want something else that has sugar in it. So my recommendation, if you need something sweet in the morning for breakfast, is to eat fruit. But the best thing to do is eat a savory breakfast. So we'll talk a little bit about some more types of foods to eat for breakfast. But starting your day off with way less sugar than 32 grams is definitely the best way to start. Okay, so how to quit sugar for good. There's a lot of ways that we can help ourselves out to quit sugar. So, meat is one of the main sources of amino acids, and amino acids help to crave the sugar craving, basically. So for people that don't want to eat meat, are on a plant-based diet, and which is what I encourage you to go more in that direction, you can get the amino acids and omega-3s for that matter from other things like seaweed, whole grains, quinoa, nuts and seeds, and then for a lot of times people that are more plant-based, they will tend to eat eggs and things like salmon or tuna or mackerel. You can get your amino acids from those sources as well, or you can consider taking a supplement. Other things to supplement with that help blood sugar stabilization are going to be chromium and glutamine. It's just something you get at the health food store. Getting more vitamin D. So I like the sun personally. Wearing sunscreen and going out and spending time in the sun, I think, is one of the keys to happiness. And vitamin D is something that we all need. And there's actually a huge deficit of vitamin D, and it's something that doctors are really starting to analyze now, especially on the mainland, where it's a lot of times it's cloudy, it's snowing, it's raining, people are indoors, they're not outside as much as we are here in Hawaii. but it's a pretty critical vitamin to have for optimal health and to curb sugar cravings. Soda is obviously a problem that I probably don't need to tell you is a problem, but soda is, if you can do anything, if you're a soda drinker, cutting regular soda, diet soda, whatever it is, cutting that out is going to be an instant way to lose weight and boost your health. A substitute for soda, sparkling water, Perrier or one of the others is a good way to kind of wean yourself off. And I find that low sugar kombucha is what most people tend to like when they're really trying to break the soda habit. It can be a little bit of a acquired taste at first, but it tends to acquire quickly. So trying kombucha, typically with the lower sugar types like a cranberry or a ginger type, or even they have lavender or cayenne pepper, just choosing one that's the lowest sugar is great. Reducing stress and sleeping more. So we'll talk a little bit more about regular sleep cycles, but keeping yourself well balanced and reducing stress levels will also help to reduce sugar cravings. Determining if you have a food sensitivity. So this is something that can take a lot of different directions. If you find that you're craving sugar all the time, it may actually be because you have a sensitivity to sugar, because that's what happens. Things that our body is actually allergic to or sensitive to, we tend to want to crave. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. I help people do this all the time with figuring out their food allergies and doing elimination diets and things like that, but it's also something that you can research on your own. So if you think you might have some sort of sugar sensitivity, you can do an elimination diet and basically eliminate the food, or it could be sugar, dairy, meat, and eggs, for instance. You eliminate those foods, you see how you do, and then you slowly start weeding each one back in, and that will tell you if you have a sensitivity. Drinking lots of water, that actually helps to fill you up, and it can curb sugar cravings. And limiting coffee and caffeinated beverages in the morning. So I know some people like to drink the whole pot, and then they like to drink it throughout the day, and then they want the spike in the afternoon, the 2-3 o'clock spike. Caffeine actually it ignites cravings, and it makes you drink or eat more sugar. So trying to limit coffee and caffeinated beverages just to the morning time, and being cognizant and careful of what you're putting in your coffee obviously is very important. So trying to drink it with either no sugar or one of the sugar substitutes that we'll talk a little later about. Eliminating artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners that are out there are basically toxins, and they're all genetically modified. You're basically putting poison in your body when you use any kind of artificial sweetener. You can use things like stevia, there's rice malt syrup, even things like blackstrap molasses or coconut sugar are going to be lower on the glycemic index, so they're better for you to sweeten. But working to train yourself from craving things sweet all the time is the best route to go. As we talked a little bit about starting your day with with savory versus sweet. Eggs are a great way to do it. You could also do things like a bowl of quinoa with avocado and some blanched kale, some garlic, depending upon the things that you like. There's no reason why you have to eat breakfast food for breakfast. One thing when I first started myself, as I was trying to lose weight, I had a real problem with portion control, and I would just eat huge plates of pasta and like lo mein from Panda Express and like all those things. I had a huge carb addiction. So I actually went to Target and I bought all those Amy's meals, the organic Amy's meals, and I just, every single meal for 2 weeks, I just ate those every single day, trying to get my appetite down. I don't know that that's necessarily the best thing for everyone to do, but for me to stop eating so much as I was trying to wean myself off of the carbs, I found that I would just eat like, brown rice and vegetables with black-eyed peas and Amy's mix, and I would eat that for breakfast because it was savory, didn't have all the sugar in it, and I liked the way it tasted. Let's see, don't skip meals. And as you get further into reading about your blood type and your Ayurvedic dosha, you'll learn if you're supposed to eat 2, 3, or 4 times a day, because each body type is different and does better with eating fewer or more times per day. And also eating at the same time every day. That helps to regulate your body clock. It regulates your digestion. When your body knows when to expect food to come into it, it just creates this clock. And it's the same exact thing with sleep. If you go to bed at the same time every night and wake up at approximately the same time, it regulates the body clock. It helps to reduce cravings, it helps to reduce stress, and it also helps to boost your immunity. So regulation in your body clock, your sleep, and regular meals. I can't stress how important that is. If you have had something that maybe wasn't the best choice, that has a lot of sugar, and you don't want to continue on that path the rest of the day, you can actually use a tongue scraper and scrape your tongue. And it helps to get rid of the residue, and it doesn't make you crave as much. So it's a little tool you can keep in your back pocket. Of course, eliminating processed foods with empty versions of wheat in them. Eating a balanced plate of nutrients. So we'll talk about a nutrient-rich diet in just a bit, but having lots of vitamins and nutrients on your plate every time you eat is really important. Just eating protein for a lunch or just eating a vegetable isn't going to satiate you or keep you full and reduce the cravings. You want to have balance in your plate every time. And you can see in the handout that I gave you, the plate that's there, that's a modified version of the new USDA plate. There's a couple modifications that were made to that plate, but it's basically showing in your day what you should take in. You'll notice that there's no bread, there's no dairy, there's no things like that were on the traditional government food pyramid. There's some modifications there. Let's see. Eat naturally sweet vegetables. So if you're finding you need something sweet, you gotta get it in at some point. You can put an Okinawa potato slice on your plate. You can even look at sweeter vegetables like broccoli. I find broccoli personally is a great filler, and a lot of times instead of rice, I'll even use broccoli in my stir fries just to bulk it up some, and it gives it a little bit of sweetness too. Sweet red peppers are great. Natural sweet vegetables. Seasoned with sweet spices, you can use a lot of the Indian spices. I love cooking Indian food, and I use a lot of cinnamon, a lot of cardamom, a lot of the sweeter corianders, types of spices, and that seems to work pretty well. And let's see, we talked about some of the sweetener alternatives, but the biggest thing is if you don't want to eat it, don't buy it, right? So the biggest thing that I hear from people, especially people with kids, is that they buy it for the kids, right? And so it's in the house, they've got the goldfish crackers, they've got the Go-Gurt, they've got all these things, and they find themselves picking at them, right? So obviously I tell people, focus on yourself, get yourself healthy. If you do have kids and you want to change your life, you want to get yourself in order, but at the same time, you want your family to be healthy as well. So trying to weed those things out of your house gradually and get them out so you're not picking in them, your kids aren't picking in them, and gradually change the whole family over to a healthy living lifestyle. Okay, so what happens once you quit sugar? Once you get it out of your life, or at least some of it out of your life, you actually reduce your overall caloric intake. So it makes you eat less because sugar makes you crave things that are empty and empty calories. So you find yourself wanting more nutrient-rich foods and you're satiated, and overall you eat less. You lose weight, your skin becomes clear. I've been in the skincare industry for years, and I actually, not to give myself a plug, but I have another skincare line that's launching in April. And I've really started to fashion the idea of this new skincare line to connect with what I'm doing on the health side, because if you're eating a junk diet, it doesn't matter what cream you're putting on your face, your skin is not going to look good. It's just not. So it's really about the nutrients you're putting into your body, reducing the sugar, putting whole foods in, and your skin glows. I mean, it's amazing. It really is. Sugar, again, cancer risk. That is just powerful information to me. Thinking of, as you're eating, I know you've probably seen some of these out there in Facebook land before, but thinking about everything you eat as either healing your body or hurting it. That's a pretty powerful concept when you start putting things in your mouth. If you're like, this donut, ooh, sugar, cancer, ugh. I don't want people to get into a habit where they're paranoid to eat anything. Because obviously every once in a while you want to eat a donut, every once in a while you want to eat a slice of pizza. But, you have to have moderation out there. But it does help if you're someone that chronically eats those things. Your immune system is strengthened, your energy increases, and sugar is a huge effect on people that have mood disorders, anxiety, and depression. So getting those things, or getting sugar out will help the mood. Okay, so just other quick hidden sources of sugar. Low-fat dairy products. Skim milk. My mother raised me on low-fat, 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 fat-free. That's all we had in the house. If it said that on it, we had it. And those low-fat products, instead of the fat, they take the fat out and they put sugar in. So just be very, very wary of anything that says low-fat, fat-free. It's probably going to be high sugar. Dairy is one of the big ones. Breads, of course, rice, crackers, like anything that's processed. I put Subway sandwiches on them because I have a specific bone with Subway. You know, they had the whole Jared campaign for years, and he lost all that weight eating the Subway sandwiches. But really, in my opinion, there's not anything much worse than you can eat than a Subway sandwich, because you've got that bread that is made with all the genetically modified wheat. It's not even whole wheat that they're using. It's a combination of all sorts of ingredients, including sugar. If you actually look at the sugar count on the bread, the whole wheat bread, it's way up there, way up there. And then the processed meats that are inside. All the meats are made with antibiotics. There's nitrates pumped into it, and then there's the same thing with the processed dairy. So eating a Subway sub is like, I see people saying they're trying to be healthy, and it's like my food police brain just tells me to just be quiet, just be quiet. You don't have to tell everybody, but it's definitely something to take a look at. And baked lays as your side, same thing. It's all genetically modified. Just because it's baked doesn't mean it's good. Okay, we talked about fruit juice, we talked about granola, and then another source that people don't think of a lot of times is white potatoes. So if you're going to eat potatoes, you probably want to opt for Okinawan or sweet potatoes. Why? Because they have higher mineral contents. White potatoes, there's some there, but it's more starch. So the more minerals and the more vitamins that you have, if you're going to eat something that's starch and that's a little more empty, the more likely your body is to digest it faster. Okay, so whole grains. I'm going to try and move through this fast because I know I'm pretty long-winded here. So whole grains, you just want to make sure when you're eating the grain, it's 100% whole grain. So what a whole grain is the entire grain of the kernel is kept intact. So it basically helps the grain itself to protect itself, and your body will actually digest it better. So when the grain is taken off, or the kernel, basically, the grain kernel, it exposes it to all sorts of different elements, right, including toxins. So 100% whole grain. And eating gluten-free grains is best. I'll talk about in the next slide. And then when you do eat grains, your whole grains, soaking them first is the best way to get them to digest best. Grains are typically coated in phytic acid, and phytic acid is hard to digest. That's why a lot of these different dietary theories, like I think it's the paleo theory maybe, suggest, don't eat grains, don't eat grains. If you eat whole grains that have been soaked and you get rid of the phytic acid, they're great, and your body can typically digest them well. And I suggest, as you're trying to lose weight, you're looking to lose weight, eating the grains earlier in the morning, earlier in the day. If you're going to eat starchy things, trying to eat them earlier in the morning. That way your body has time to process and get rid of them. So at dinner, I typically recommend eating more vegetables and protein instead of potatoes and rice and that type of thing. Okay, so gluten. I know it's like a weird topic for a lot of people, and people are like, oh, gluten. Well, there really is something with gluten. Okay, certain people do have celiac disease, and it can be dangerous for them. 30 to 40% of the population actually has genetic backgrounds that are conducive with developing celiac disease. However, the reason to avoid gluten is really because it can lead to leaky gut. Gluten is wheat protein, and it's very, very hard on your gut. And a lot of times you have people in their 20s, their 30s, they're like, I eat all the time, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with it, blah, blah, blah. But what you see is, people getting into their 40s and their 50s, and they've got autoimmune conditions, they've got IBS, they've got all these different unexplained conditions, fibromyalgia, that doctors, they can't explain, and give them a pill and hope that they feel better. but it's got to come from somewhere, right? Everything has a root cause. So all of the research that I have done, and you can do the same research for yourself because I give you the sources in the handout, points to wheat gluten getting leaky gut and causing autoimmune conditions and causing various different diseases. Crohn's disease is another very common one. So it's not saying that's going to happen in everyone. And if you do eat wheat, do decide to choose to keep that in your diet, eat organic. That is going to help the case, but tons of overload of gluten, not that great for most people. And also too, if you ever find that you just kind of feel bloated, you just feel like, not like there's anything wrong with you really, but you just feel like a little bloated all the time, chances are it's gluten. Okay, so having talked about grains and giving the case for whole grains and keeping some whole grains in your diet within moderation, there's lots of ways that you can substitute grains. So for rice, I like to use cauliflower. So in a food processor, you can just chop up the rice, throw it in the food processor, literally you zap it for 10 minutes, and then you have rice. And it tastes like rice when you actually saute it up in a pan, and you put whatever you're going to put on it on top of it. It's a perfect substitute for rice. You can mash cauliflower, you can add whatever milk you choose to use, you can add garlic, all the things, you blend it up with a power blender, and great mashed potatoes. Zucchini noodles instead of pasta or wheat-based noodles gives you a lot of extra nutrients, and you don't even have to cook them. You use the spiralizer, you make your zucchini noodles, and then you put your hot sauce on top of it, and it actually cooks the noodles to an al dente level. So it's, after a while, you don't even miss the pasta. So, and then I get into using a lot of alternative flours. So I like to have pizza every once in a while. So I make my pizzas from scratch, and I'll usually use almond flour, arrowroot flour, tapioca, and you make a blend, and you can make a pizza that tastes great. So I would highly recommend experimenting with alternative flours in any kind of cooking that you do. If you're not already on it, Pinterest is a really amazing resource for any kind of alternative cooking and alternative ingredients. All you have to do is type in the word and things will come up. And then instead of using tortillas or corn or flour tortillas, you can use hydroponically grown butter lettuce, and like for tacos or different things like that. And Costco has it right now, it's in season, which is pretty good. Okay, so how are we doing on time?
So, however,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to speed through some of these. I know I can get a little long-winded. So as I mentioned, I think it's a great plan for most people to eat primarily plant-based. So if you follow the 80-20 rule, at least 80% of your food's coming from plant sources versus animal sources. It's just a healthier way to live. The research, there's so much research and science that backs that, and I've put a lot of those sources where I have my research and for my schooling and different things in that handout. So a lot of times when people are like looking at going plant-based or reducing meat, they're worried about things like protein, iron, zinc, vitamin B12, vitamin D, things that are found in meat. There are equally as many sources of all those vitamins in plant-based sources as there are in meat sources. So that's never a worry. Protein, you can go quinoa, buckwheat. Ezekiel bread is actually something that I kind of keep in the mix. I typically tend to not recommend eating bread, but Ezekiel bread is all 100% whole grains and they're from sprouted sources. So the bread actually digests much easier than typical whole grain bread. So you can see from reading the slide, I'm going to cruise through this a little bit, but there's lots of sources of all of these vitamins in plant-based sources. Okay, and then for a lot of people that do try and go mostly plant-based, I find that the animal proteins that work well for most people are eggs, goat and feta cheese, because it's lower in lactose and the body actually digests it. It's actually lower in A1K cells as well. So most people that have allergies to dairy can typically tolerate feta and goat cheese. Salmon, because there's an extremely high amount of omega-3 fatty acids. Wild caught only though, stay away from the farm raised. And then something else that I've actually been getting into recently is sardines. I started making them for my dogs, but I was like, I tasted them one day, I'm like, oh, these are actually pretty good, so I'm gonna start putting them in my diet. But they're super cheap, they're like $1 at Long's, and they're wild caught and everything, so something to think about inexpensively to throw in there. And then ghee, which can be used in cooking. Again, I make a lot of Indian food, so I tend to use ghee instead of regular butter because it's casein and lactose free. So, okay, so as we talked about before, eating nutrient rich is literally it's your only way to stop counting calories and stop counting fat grams, stop counting carbohydrates, stop counting anything. I don't ever look at calories. I never think about calories. If you look at, for instance, a 100-calorie pack of pretzels versus an apple, which has about 100 calories, your body is going to digest those foods completely different. Those pretzels are going to stick around, they're going to increase your insulin, and you're going to have a sugar crash later in the day, and you're going to want to eat more pretzel-type food. If you eat an apple, it's going to satiate you, and it's going to regulate your insulin levels, and you're going to be full. So choosing the right kinds of calories is what you need to look at, nutrient-rich calories versus empty calories. Okay, so other causes of cravings. We've talked about some of these, but lack of primary foods, which we all know that if we're sad or lonely or stressed out, we can reach for food. Some of us tend to eat, some of us tend to not eat. It just depends on how you're built, really, and the experiences that you had in life. So knowing when you're reaching for something and you maybe just eaten like the hour before and you should be full, stopping and analyzing, okay, am I eating because I'm sad? Am I eating because I'm stressed out about going to work tomorrow and I have this presentation? Or just taking a minute to analyze why you're actually eating and just thinking about it will actually help with some of the cravings. Or dehydration, lack of water can manifest as hunger. A yin-yang imbalance, which is if you're eating too much sugar, it may cause a craving for meat. Sugar is yin, meat is yang, or the opposite. If you're eating tons of meat, you might start craving sugar. So it's just keeping a balance of foods. Expansive anti-attractive foods, which we can talk more about that later too. Let's see, lack of nutrients. If you're not getting the rich nutrients in your diet, you'll tend to crave sugar as well. And then things like hormonal fluctuation, hormonal imbalances, which actually arrive a lot of times because of dietary things from the past. So I'm going to cruise through a couple more of these just because they're not quite as important as some of the other things. But this is one of the big things that I find with people and why they fail with getting healthy and eating the right foods. So the perfectionist mentality, it basically creates an impossible mindset. It makes it so that if you're not perfect, you're just going to give up, basically. So approaching a new way of eating and thinking about losing weight and thinking about a healthy lifestyle is something that you have to approach with a lifelong mindset. It can't be, okay, I'm going on this trip to Vegas in March and I really need to lose 20 pounds, and so I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out every single day and I'm going to eat this, and I'm going to only eat 1,000 calories a day, and then I have to make that goal before I go to Vegas. It's just a recipe for disaster, and it's a recipe for yo-yo dieting too. If you want to get on the right track, if you want to get into a healthy lifestyle, if you want to change your life, basically, you have to do it with moderation, and you have to allow yourself to take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. As long as you're working on being better than you were the day before, that's all that matters. Perfectionist approach to weight loss and health will get you absolutely nowhere. So I just recommend thinking about that a little bit more and actually thinking about it in other areas of your life. It's the same thing with everything. It's with work, it's with how you parent, it's with how you brush your hair in the morning. It's all these things in your life. If you really look at perfectionism, it's really the root of most people's failure. Okay, so almost to the end here, guys. Hang with me just a little longer. Digestion, you heard me talk about it a lot tonight, but it's really the key to health. The food you bring into your body, having it exit is super, super important. And having little left behind is what we want. So, in the morning, breakfast and lunch, as many raw foods as you can possibly pack in. I get it, it's hard to eat a lot of raw foods, and I would never say eat an all raw diet because it's hard. That's hard for most people, and it's extreme too. So whatever you can do to put as many as you can in. Like for instance, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll make myself an omelet, and I'll put some veggies inside of the omelet, but then I leave the spinach out. So then I'll eat the omelet with the raw spinach. So there's little tricks that you can do to include more raw foods because the nutrients are richer and it actually helps to hydrate. Cooked foods actually deplete water and deplete hydration, and raw foods actually help to rehydrate. Food combining is something that you can look a lot into. A lot of times people experience digestive upset because of the way they combine foods. So the best quick things I can do to kind of get through this one is with fruit, you don't really want to eat it after a cooked meal unless you're eating pineapple. Pineapple is full of digestive enzymes. And living here in Hawaii, we have so much of it, and most local people are like, pineapple, no thank you. And it's funny, when I had the Bath and Body business, everybody was like, pineapple, don't put that in here, all the local stores. But it's really, really healthy. It's really good for you, and it helps your food to digest. So I recommend for anyone, after a meal, any time of day, eat pineapple. In fact, they make whole supplements called bromelain, which is a pineapple enzyme for people to take that have digestive issues. Fruit combining. So fruits and greens will go together, but meats and starches don't typically go very well together. That can cause upset and can actually wreak havoc on digestion. If you're going to eat melons, you want to eat those alone and in the morning on an empty stomach. And like I mentioned with grains, you want to make sure you're releasing acidic acid. So if you are eating grains, a lot of times people will put a bunch of fruit on top of their oatmeal. That can actually set people's digestive tracts off for the day. So soak the oats, and then if you're going to eat fruit with oatmeal, you probably want to eat berries. That's usually the best one that will go with oatmeal. Okay, for digestion, again, making sure you're properly hydrated, and then again to drive this home, eating at the same time every day. I realize this is hard for a lot of people because a lot of people work nursing jobs, or they work jobs where they're shift working and their schedules are always different, and they're basing their eating around clients and different things like that. Whatever you can do to work towards eating within the same block of hours each day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, is going to help to regulate your body, regulate your digestive system. Okay, of course, we talked about the sleep. Sleeping the same amount of hours every night if you can, going to bed at the same time, regulating that body clock helps with digestion. And then also plating your food at the stove instead of, I don't know how everybody eats here, but everybody's family is different. Some families put bowls on the table, you can scoop, keep giving yourself portions. If the food is left on the stove and in the kitchen away from the table, it forces you to get up and get more. So it's a way to actually help you eat less if you plate your food at the stove. Okay. When I say practice mindful eating, there's some interesting YouTube videos out there that you can Google. There's some really famous ones that are out there. But it actually teaches people how to chew their food slowly. And if you can take one piece of food and actually chew it for 1 minute, it's pretty painful, I have to say. But if you can practice that and do the exercise, it will actually train you to overall start eating slower, chewing your food very well. The more you chew your food, the easier it is for it to digest. Eat seasonally and locally. When food has to travel from all over, from other countries, by the time it gets here, it actually starts to lose the nutrients. So if you eat local produce, eat local foods, it's going to have a higher nutrient count. Green tea is a great way to help aid digestion after meals. Japanese have done it for years. It's a great staple in their diet. I highly recommend it. Green juice, again, we talked a little bit about juice. Using a juicer at home or getting a juice from a place that does cold pressed juice with primarily greens in the juice. You can have fruit, obviously, to sweeten it. Usually green apple is one way that they'll sweeten green juice. Or my favorite green juice is green apple, cucumber, and what's the other one? Lime. So you've got the cucumber in there, that's your green, but it's a really good digestive elixir. We talked about excessive starch at dinner. Keeping a food journal in the beginning of your journey to health and weight loss. If you have some really specific goals in mind with wanting to lose weight, the best thing you can do for yourself in the beginning is to keep a food journal, because it can be really, really eye-opening. I can't tell you how many clients I've started with here that it's been like pulling teeth getting them to write down their food because they just don't want to show me what they're eating. And so doing it for yourself, you can see it, you can see what's in the food journal, and it'll be eye-opening at the end of the day to a lot of people, especially in the beginning. So I don't recommend for the rest of your life, right, using a food journal, but it's a great training tool in the beginning. Okay, depending on determining your start style, we talked a little bit about this, but I recommend going into this with gradual changes. Feeding in, feeding out. So starting in one area, and say maybe it's just your first goal here is to try and eliminate genetically modified foods from your diet. Or maybe it's to try and eliminate sugar. Or maybe it's to try and bring in more greens. An all or nothing approach, again, it's the key to failure. So unless you have superhuman capabilities, doing all of this at one time is not going to serve you. You want to try and do it gradually. Whatever your timeline of gradualness is, everybody's is going to be different, but really trying to feed in, feed out with these new habits is going to be the healthiest way to be able to maintain it long term. Okay, we got the GMOs. If you are going to eat meat, eating organic, pasture-raised meat is the best way to go, because factory farmed animals are fed GMO crops, so they right there already have bad stuff going into them. And they're shot full of antibiotics. So you have all of these things going into their bodies, and then they're living in these really terrible, terrible conditions. I mean, I don't want to get into animal rights because I know it's a sensitive subject with people, but I know we've all seen the videos. And if you think about, there's a concept called food energetics, and you're putting energy into your body every time you eat. If you're putting an animal that suffered and had a miserable, terrible life into your body, it's bad energy. So as you're thinking about your whole life, your whole way of being, your whole way of being, think about eating organic, pasteurized meat that's not factory farmed. And yoga. Yoga is awesome for digestion. There's all sorts of twists and turns that actually are created in order to help your digestive system. Yoga is one of the fastest ways to incorporate weight loss and to keep it off. And to keep your body healthy and disease-free. Okay, so some basic cooking tips. So I know cooking is not the easiest thing for a lot of people. A lot of people don't like to cook. They like to go out. I myself will admit that I probably cook at home 4 nights a week, and the other 2 to 3 nights I do eat out. But I've learned to eat out, and I know how to pick the right things. But learning to love cooking is actually something that can be an amazing mood booster, and it can bring a lot of joy and a lot of happiness. So things that I found that work for me and have helped others: turn the TV off when you're cooking, turn on some music, and if you want, sing while you're cooking. Just make it a happy experience. Whatever makes you happy in life, if it's music, if it's having your spouse in the room to talk to you while you're cooking, incorporate those things into the task that you maybe once didn't like, and it'll help to improve it. We talked about Pinterest, using Pinterest for recipes. It's a great resource. Owning a sharp knife is really important. If your knives are all dull and it's hard to cut, it's no fun. So just watch a YouTube video, learn how to sharpen your knife. You can do it at home. Learning to cook ethnic foods. Again, I've said Indian food I think 16 times tonight because I love it. And I find that using lots of different spices and lots of different flavors, Thai cooking, obviously Indian, Mexican, Italian, really switching it up, getting out of your own culture's food, the standard American diet, whatever it is, and just experimenting and bringing in lots of different flavors is a great way to enjoy cooking. And then the other thing that is interesting for a lot of people is presentation of food. So if your food looks pretty when you're eating it, if you present it on your plate in a nice way, you'll actually eat it slower because it's something that's nice to look at versus if you just plop it on the plate and you're shoveling it in your mouth, right? So, I mean, granted, we all do that from time to time because we're in a hurry or whatever. But if it's a nice presentation, we're going to be slower in our approach to eating the food. And there's a theory that our digestive system actually starts visually from our eyes first. So if you're looking at the food and it's appealing, your digestive system already starts. White plates are great too because you can see your food better. And then, appreciate the eating, be mindful of the cleaning. So I know the cleanup is always the worst part. Everyone hates cleaning. But if you change your mindset and you think, I've just prepared this amazing meal, I've just made myself and my family healthy, I've just prevented disease, cleaning those pots really is not such a bad thing. It actually makes you think, okay, I'm preparing them for the next time I'm going to make this amazing, healthy meal that's going to help my family to live a long life. Okay, so eating out. I just said I eat out 3 nights a week, but you find the places that work with you after doing it for a while. So the downside of eating at most restaurants is they use a lot of iodized salt. They don't typically use organic or free range or grass-fed. They use hydrogenated vegetable oils and GMOs. Eating out can actually be a colossal waste of time. You have to drive to the restaurant, stay there, wait for your food, drive back. And it doesn't allow you to build leftovers. So dinner a lot of time is the source for lunch the next day. So if you're making a healthy lunch or making yourself a healthy dinner, you can easily eat that the next day, and then you don't have to think about that meal. Eating out, you're probably going to eat most of your food at the restaurant. And again, the concept of food energetics. I could talk again for hours about that, but food that's cooked in a fast-paced, frantic environment takes on an energy that's fast-paced and frantic. When you're putting that craziness into your body, you absorb that energy. You've seen the cooking shows, and the ones where they're screaming, the dishes are flying, and everybody's yelling at each other. At home, if you're in your Zen mode, you're listening to your music, you might be sipping a glass of red wine while you're cooking. It's a much more relaxed experience. Okay, so just a quick couple things. After eating out, you can really go anywhere and pick better options. Granted, like I said, these are probably going to be in a lot of the restaurants, but you can still pick better options. If you go to Mexican, you can get a taco salad with fish on it. Just don't eat the shell. Maybe go easy on the cheese too. If you go to Italian restaurants, I like going to Assaggio's because it's fairly close to where I live, and they'll actually substitute pasta for vegetables. So anything that I like sauce-wise, they'll put it over vegetables, and it's super good. Bars and grills, you can usually pick up a fish dish. They'll usually offer salads. They'll offer sides that are vegetable-based. Just be careful of things in salads when you eat out. There's Chinese crunchy noodles. There's dressings that are laced with all kinds of stuff. So just be mindful. There's definitely healthy options out there. Indian's a great resource. Thai food, of course, lots of veggies in the food. Sushi, you can eat seaweed salads. You can opt to get brown rice in your sushi rolls. A lot of places are actually substituting rice for cucumbers now in sushi rolls, so that's an option if you really want to go grain-free. And then breakfast, really watch at places like Starbucks. I honestly feel like it's the new McDonald's because people start their day with these huge frappuccinos every day, and they're literally setting themselves up for sabotage for the rest of the day. So if you do go to places like Starbucks, they do offer organic non-GMO soy milk, so you can have that in your coffee. And opt for things like veggie omelets, and just you can consider skipping things like hash browns, because a lot of times the hash browns that restaurants serve are stuffed with modified food starch. So just things to be aware of. Okay, last 2 slides, I promise. Kitchen tool checklist. These are my favorite things in my kitchen that I think everybody should have. The food processor. This is literally a $30 food processor, and it will change your life. You can make anything you want, all kinds of alternative recipes with this food processor, and it's lasted me for 2 years already. And I just checked the price before I left, $30 on Amazon. I would highly recommend it. It's a Hamilton Beach. A double burner griddle. This is actually a non-stick, and normally I don't recommend non-stick cookware, but this one is PFOA free, and I've had this one for 3 years, and it does not have a single scratch on it. So this is the single most used pan in my kitchen. I cook all my omelets on it. I cook most of my dinners on it. You can put vegetables. You can put everything. And then the way to seal in the heat is you just put a lid cover from a pot over top of the food, and it cooks it. This is the easiest, fastest pan that you can use to cook healthy food. Vegetable spiralizer. Talked about that. That's a super cheap tool. It's like $10. You can get them at Walmart even. And I recommend having a Vitamix or some sort of blender where you can make smoothies or a juicer. A lot of people like smoothies, a lot of people like juicers. I prefer juice personally, but it's a lot of times a pain in the butt to make the juice because it's so much work and then it's so much to clean it afterwards. So Vitamix is easy, you can throw it all in there and then just hit the button and then put it in your glass. So trying to incorporate one or the other into your household is nice, and having a smoothie or a juice a couple times a week is a great way to get a bunch of nutrients into your body. And then lastly, cookware. You want stainless steel or copper, just because that's the healthiest options. a hydro flask or some sort of glass bottle to drink water out of. We don't want to be drinking out of plastic bottles, because what happens when plastic is filled is the water companies actually blow their own bottles. So plastic is really hot when they blow the bottles, and plastic is toxic. And a lot of times bottles, before they're even fully cooled, they put the water into the plastic bottles. So those toxins that are still hot are actually going into the water. So that's the main reason why we don't want to drink out of plastic bottles. And I mentioned it before, white plates, because it's easy to visualize your food. It helps with the slower eating process. Okay, this is in your handouts. This is just a recap of some of the top tips from tonight that you can look at and regroup on, and then suggested reading. So there's one slide that basically has a lot of my sources from a lot of the theories that I value and find helpful to a lot of people. And of course, I am also a resource. You can always contact me through my website. My cards are up there. I have brochures that a lot of you have picked up. And I do work one-on-one with individuals from a health coaching standpoint. So if any of you ever want any one-on-one individual help, you can feel free to call me. And I do have other little events and things that I do, so those will be posted on my website. So if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to ask, or we can talk later.
Thank you. Gosh, that was amazing. That was like a one-week course in like thank you for putting all that together. Oh my gosh. I think what was so valuable was that I think everybody could take something away, and I think it's that whole thing that you gave us so many options that something has to stick. And I like the whole all or nothing. You set yourself up to fail, so it's just like doing one small thing and then going from there. So I'm really curious, so how do you work with people? Is it like a hourly, or is it like a program? Can you share a little bit more?
Sure. Well, I do several different types of programs. Some people want to just meet with me one time and take my evaluation, which is about a 30-minute process. And I basically analyze you from top to bottom, from your past medical history to your...
You listen to blood types, AB?
Yes, I do. Exactly. So we work with the blood typing, we figure out your Ayurvedic dosha. We basically analyze everything about you in your life, and then I put together a very, very, very customized plan. Mm-hmm. So there's a plan where you can have that portion, and I meet with you one time, or you can have all of that, and then I can meet with you 4 times over a month. I can meet with you every week for 3 months, and then I can meet with you over a 6-month period. And I do meetings in person, I do meetings over the phone, I do them via instant messenger, via Skype, whatever's most convenient. I do rent spaces in Box Jelly. Yeah. So, it's not like so I do have an office space where I can meet in town. I actually live on the North Shore, so I'm kind of far away from most people, but I'm very flexible with whatever meeting style is best for each person.
And is all that information on your website?
It is. It's on my website, hlifemethod.com, and that's on the brochure and the card. So you can see all the different packages that I offer. And,
that's so cool. And just really, there's so many things you think you know, but you don't know, right? You just think you know, or you kind of heard, but you don't really know. Yeah, that's what I love, like you really know.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
I mean, I think for me, I'm kind of an investigator type, the detective, and so if I don't have hard evidence behind what I'm being taught, I probably won't believe it. So any of the theories that I'm backing or that I've talked about are things that I've studied through school, I've done my own research work on, and I've actually seen the studies with my own eyes. So I wouldn't say them or talk about them if I didn't wholeheartedly believe them.
It's interesting. When you talk about the animals and how they're raised and all that, I've been vegetarian for maybe like 8, 10 or so years, but I remember when I transitioned into that, once you get to a certain point, you're so sensitive to it that when I would eat meat, I would actually feel the consciousness of the animal. It was kind of weird. It's like, I never thought about it before, but then you just can feel it because there's a consciousness that the animal has. So it was very interesting when you say that. It's like, I noticed that a lot. So anyway, I know we're low on time. For those of you that are first timers here, we have all sorts of information. We have classes once a month. We have like a guest speaker come and speak. Twice a month, I speak on we do like a 30-minute happiness talk, so you can hear more about what we do. And we also have probably about 5 or 6 or 7 other teachers that teach over the course. We have membership. You can just come and take a class for $25. And if you're interested in, you don't have the means to do it, we have a scholarship program, and it's on our website, and you can go on and read it and apply. And there are people that have funded, put a sum of money, and then we can actually dole that out. We have a new scholarship student here, Brianna. She's here. She just joined up for a one-year scholarship starting this month. So there's opportunities to come here if you're interested in personal growth. And we just want to thank you for coming. And you're so fascinating. I couldn't just say stop. I had to listen to everything. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you.
So
If you have
much.
questions, just please hang around. But we're officially done.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And then Valerie and Erin, they can help you with your parking, or Valerie can. And if it wasn't for Valerie and Erin, we wouldn't have her here today, because they found her and said we have to have her. And I didn't even get to talk to interview her, but they knew you're awesome. So thank you.
Thank you.
Look at appointment Monday.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely.
Where can we meet?
Let's see. We can have the console bag space available in the room downstairs. So let me get your info and then we'll confirm it for Monday. I'm gonna get
Thank you.
I'll be right back.
Okay.